Hey guys, welcome back to We're Talking Movies. My name's Cade. I'm joined by my friend Andrew, and this is our review for Batman from 1989. Andrew, looking back at this movie, would you say it's one of the best Batman movies ever made, or at least one of the most important Batman films ever made?
Definitely one of the most important. One of the best? I would say so, yeah.
I think that one thing that does deserve a lot of credit when it comes to this movie is definitely, and we'll get into, some of the other things, but one thing that I feel is definitely arguably the best, if not one of the best, is definitely Gotham City. If Tim Burton did anything right with his two movies, it's definitely Gotham City. I think that The Batman from 2022 still has the best Gotham City, but I would say that this one is definitely a close second.
Yeah, and I completely agree. This is a really great looking Gotham. The only reason I don't consider it the absolute best is because it does feel Tim Burton-y. Do you know what I'm saying with that? Like all of his films have a feel to them with how they're with the sets they have, be it this or Edward Scissorhands or frickin' Sweeney Todd, et cetera, et cetera. They all have a very Tim Burton feel to them. They're all very well done, don't get me wrong, but they all you can tell you're watching a set of a Tim Burton movie. It's still a very, very good Gotham, and I think it definitely nails the aesthetic of Gotham. It just again, it feels a little too Tim Burton-y.
Well, what I think is great about it is if you look at most of Tim Burton's movies, his movies are always aesthetically beautiful, just in my opinion. And I'd say that this is definitely one of his best looking movies. This and Batman Returns, I would argue. I think Gotham is definitely beautifully captured through the cinematography, the production design, the color palette. I would say that this is one of Tim's best looking movies for sure.
Yes, and again, whoever did the production design for this did a phenomenal job with it. It nails the architecture, it nails the color palette. It feels like Gotham with a bit of a gothic twist, which I think Gotham would definitely benefits from.
Yeah, and actually, fun fact about it. So, when they were developing this movie, Tim Burton actually met with the legendary comic book writer Alan Moore, the writer of Batman the Killing Joke, so that he could pick his brain about, how to tackle the movie. And one of Moore's suggestions was that they get Gotham City right. And what he meant by that was make it dark and serious, like in the comics. And this is something that Tim definitely honored. And I think he sought out one of the best people to get information from.
Yes, and I do feel like it. Well, number one, Alan Moore is a genius, much like Tim Burton can be when he's on his game. But I also feel like they're also both eccentric enough that they would play off each other really well in a brainstorm session. So I think that was a brilliant choice.
Yeah, it was. And aside from Gotham City, another standout is definitely the performances. Why don't we talk about Jack Nicholson as the Joker first? Jack Nicholson's performance as Joker, definitely an incredible performance. I'm not gonna lie, not my favorite Joker performance of all time. That's still Heath Ledger, but Jack Nicholson is still definitely up there. I think that he brings such a chaotic presence to the screen with his performance and he does such a great job capturing Joker's desire to just be an agent of chaos. Yeah, I definitely give him credit for that. Still not, again, not my favorite Joker, but definitely probably top three or five.
Yeah, and one thing I like about this portrayal, as opposed to Heath Ledger's Joker, is that he does still have the slightly cartoony aspect of the Joker, but is still menacing and intimidating. Like, he kills somebody with a freaking joy buzzer. He severely injures somebody by throwing a feather pen into their neck. He's not a full blown cartoon character who is, not remotely scary in the slightest. And Jack Nicholson gave it just enough camp to be entertaining, but also still be a villain.
Yeah, he definitely brings the eccentric presence that the Joker tends to have in the comics.
Yeah, and also, in my opinion, he's probably got the best Joker laugh in film history. Would you agree with me on that?
Um, wow, that is a really good question. I would say I don't know if it's my favorite. I would say top two at least.
All right. Well, I think it's the absolute best, so we'll agree to disagree on that one.
But aside from Jack Nicholson, there's also Michael Keaton as Batman slash Bruce Wayne. I think that Keaton does such a great job making Batman, I would say, mysterious. And also, I think his Batman is also intimidating in a way. I also think that he has one of the better Batman voices.
In my opinion, Michael Keaton is the best balanced Batman performance. And what I mean by that is he does a really good job with both Bruce Wayne and Batman, which is something we didn't see as well balanced in later films. Christian Bale was a really good Bruce Wayne and a solid Batman. Ben Affleck was a really good Batman and an Bruce Wayne. Michael Keaton does a really good job with both aspects. he gives Bruce Wayne this, again, like you said, mysterious quality, but he's also got some level of likability and charm. They don't really super play up the playboy aspect, but you can still give us the vibe of this is somebody who is ultra wealthy and powerful, but he's not a dick about it either.
Yeah, that is true. And I mean, I like Keaton as Batman. As Bruce Wayne, I think he's okay. Like you said, I think he's definitely likable. He just doesn't have the all the charisma that Bruce Wayne usually has, which is fine. You know, it's his own spin on the character. But yeah, Keaton is definitely great in the movie. And one other performance that I really like is Kim Basinger as Vicky Vale. I think she was really great. Also, Michael Gough as Alfred, definitely, in my opinion, one of the best Alfreds of all time. He remains one of the best things throughout the Burton and Schumacher era.
No, I completely agree. And there's a reason why, he was one of the few characters to not go on recast throughout the four movies, despite the director switch in the middle, is that he does give a lot of, warmth and I don't know. I don't know if grandfatherly presence is the best way to describe it, but just kind of like wise and, able to deal with Bruce's moods.
Yeah, of course. And another thing, and I know that you agree with this, would have to be, one thing that I have to give a lot of credit for is Danny Elfman's score. Danny Elfman's score is definitely, just in my opinion, again, the best Batman theme that has ever been created. Hans Zimmer and Michael Giacchino created incredible Batman scores for the Dark Knight trilogy and the Batman, obviously, but there's just something really unique and special about Danny Elfman's score that I think it'll always be the, definitive Batman theme.
I think the fact that, and as somebody who actually had to perform the Batman theme when he was in school band, I don't know. I just think it's the perfect combination of the heavy use of the horns, but also the nice heavy use of strings. It gives it this very kind of almost operatic theatrical sound, but not that intense. Like it still does have an air of mystery to it, which definitely fits a Batman movie. But yeah, no, just Danny Elfman and Tim Burton, I've all noticed, seem to always do their best work working together. It's like you could argue it's kind of like Leonardo DiCaprio and Martin Scorsese, or Samuel L. Jackson and Quentin Tarantino. Obviously, those are actor director combinations, which is a little bit different, but still.
Yeah, Elfman's score is definitely the best Batman theme ever created. Do you have any other pros that you wanted to talk about?
I like the costume, the Burton Batman costume. I know a lot of people make fun of it because Batman can't turn his head, but it looks like they really did draw perfectly from the comics. And I know a lot of people don't like the use of the yellow, but I think it stands out.
Yeah, I do like the Keaton bat suit. I think it's pretty good. And again, I hate to add on to what you were just saying, but yeah, one thing I just usually can't get over is that Batman can't move his neck.
Okay, yeah, I get where you're coming from. I just think that's an issue that people might blow a little out of proportion on occasion.
I mean, it's just a minor issue that I have. It's not like, oh, this just ruins the movie for me. It's just like a minor nitpick, that's all.
Yeah, but other than that, anything else worth mentioning? I just like there's a lot of imagination in this movie too, especially with how Joker goes about his evil deeds. For me, the one that always comes to mind is the Batwing. He pulls out the comedically large revolver and shoots the Batwing with it. I'm like, I don't think that was a reference to something from a comic, but that's just that feels like a more comedic leaning Joker something. I can't think of a better word for it. I don't know. I really like this movie, and I don't really have too many bad things to say about it, but I know you do have a couple of things. So, what are some issues you do have with this movie?
All right. So, going back to what we were saying earlier, if it's one of the best Batman movies, I think it's definitely a good Batman movie. I wouldn't say it's one of my favorites. And here's why. Let me explain. So, I have certain issues with elements of the story that this movie has to tell. So, my biggest issue with this movie, and I've felt this way for a long time actually, is that Joker kills Bruce Wayne's parents. When we flash back, we find out that he was the one who killed the Waynes. So to me, this just felt like a sort of unnecessary way to kind of shoehorn a connection between the hero and the villain. And I think that this is something that is used way too often. The hero and the villain having a connection to each other. I don't think it's always necessary. And it's not something that I look for with Batman and Joker. That's honestly one of my favorite things about The Dark Knight is that Batman and Joker had no personal connection. They were just naturally arch rivals. And the reason why it's my least favorite thing is because for me, just as a huge Batman fan, it just kind of took away a sort of compelling aspect of his backstory because I always loved the idea that it wasn't anyone special who killed Bruce Wayne's parents. It wasn't someone who would become one of his villains or anyone along that line. Instead, I just always preferred the idea that it was a random criminal like Joe Chill or someone else who took away his parents, and therefore this, not special person who caused the creation of Batman. That always just contributed to the idea that, it wasn't anyone special who created him. And it also supported the idea that it was crime in general that killed his parents. So, yeah, looking back at this movie, it's definitely my least favorite thing about the film.
Yeah, and that is one of the few complaints I have about this movie as well. Weirdly enough, from the other side of the coin, though, I think it actually does takes quite a bit away from Joker's character, because I think part of what makes the Joker such a magnetic and terrifying bad guy is, in the character's own words, he likes his backstory to be multiple choice. So you add that kind of adds story where story doesn't really need to be, I think kind of takes away from the character as a whole. I still love this Joker. I still love Jack Nicholson's portrayal, but yeah, I just feel like that's an extraneous detail that really didn't need to be added. And I agree completely with what you're talking about, how it also kind of takes away from Batman's origin a little bit. But I think it takes away from Joker's even more, honestly.
Yeah, and we also find out that Joker was a member of organized crime before he eventually became the Joker when he was Jack Napier, which, I'm fine with that aspect of the movie, giving him a sort of backstory. But yeah, also adding in the fact that he killed the Wayne family, it also adds an even deeper layer to his backstory that, again, on what you were talking about, just did feel unnecessary.
Yeah, and again, that's one of my few made. That's probably my biggest complaint in this movie is that, because I just feel like, I feel like that's adding details where details really didn't need to be added.
Yeah, and I think another complaint that I might have is, and again, this is something that I have with quite a few of the Batman movies. One thing I can't get over is that Batman casually kills people in these movies, because what's his number one rule?
Don't kill people. This is Batman. This is not the Punisher or Ghost Rider or Spawn or Deadpool or one of the other, 500,000 other edgy killing superheroes.
Yeah, and again, it has happened in other movies, and it happened in this movie and Batman Returns. It did happen throughout the Dark Knight trilogy, actually, and it definitely happened in Batman versus Superman. Yeah, it's not just this movie specifically. It's just you'd think that I would just get used to it by now, but it's still just something that just bugs me every time I watch one of these movies.
Yeah, that's one of those things I really wish it's not, again, like you said, it's not just this movie issue, but I really wish they would just stop doing this in general. Like, I mean, that's something that they don't do in the Arkham games, and it doesn't take away from those.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Here's another issue I have. So when it comes to Joker's plan throughout the movie, so his main goal is to kill Batman, which okay, fine. And also he poisons Gotham through beauty and hygiene products, which yeah, that's another way to create chaos and everything. That's all fine. But if you think about it, his other main goal, aside from wanting to kill Batman, is to make Vicky Vale his mate. I mean, really, that's the best they could come up with for Joker.
Yeah, that doesn't really fit what they were going for. I think having him poison Gotham with the beauty products, I think would have been would have been a better choice for a main evil plot. It I don't know, it just doesn't fit. Yeah, I feel like if this was any other character, it would have worked better. But Joker just, it's too emotional of a plot for Joker, if that makes any sense. He's the agent of chaos, and chaos and mayhem and destruction is like the main things he's interested in. Or psychological torture, because the stuff like that comes to mind when he paralyzes Batgirl in Killing Joke.
Yes.
Yeah, it just feels, I don't know, it just feels really out of character, I think is the best way to describe it.
Yeah, but nevertheless, it doesn't ruin the movie or anything.
No, by no means. It's just, it's just a weird decision. Kind of like having Joker kill Batman's parents was kind of a weird decision.
It could be argued that it was just a way to connect the story a little bit better.
Maybe, maybe.
But on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you give this movie?
I do believe that there are better Batman movies out there, but I definitely still really like this one. So I think solid 8.5, 8.5.
I think, while I still like a lot of things about this movie, despite my issues with the story, otherwise, I think it's still a good movie. I think I would give it a 7.5 out of 10. I think that would be my rating for it. All right, guys, I think that's the end of this review. Thanks so much for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you later.